Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Work From Home Show. I'm Naresh Vista with Adam Schroeder. Shout out to all our homies, homeboys, homegirls, home trans, all the work from homers out there. Today we have Dr. Philippe Bouissou. Prior to founding Blue Dots Partners, Dr. Philippe co-founded and was executive chairman of evenVoice, a mobile real-time consumer empowerment company, for over half a decade. He co-managed the Milestone Group, a management consulting firm serving over 220 clients. And before Milestone, he was general partner for 7 years with two venture capital firms. And this guy is busy. Allegis Capital, which had $500 million under management, and Ventech, which had $200 million under management. And prior to being a venture capital, yes, he just never stops. He's a machine. Prior to being a VC, Philippe created and was director of the worldwide internet commerce group at Apple, where he founded and managed the online Apple Store and grew its revenue from 0 to 350 million. So all of our Apple users out there, you use the app, the online Apple Store, and that was Dr. Philippe who was responsible for that. And even before that, of course, we can't end there. He founded and was the CEO of G2i, a Unix software company that was later acquired by Matra. He is the #1 best-selling author of Aligning the Dots, the New Paradigm to Grow Any Business. Dr. Philippe Bouissou, welcome to the Work From Home Show.
Thank you, Naresh. It's a pleasure being here.
Well, first, let's start with that intro that I had for you, your resume. Wow, that is incredible. So let's go all the way back, as far back as you can. What got you interested in entrepreneurship and what kept you going, that drive for entrepreneurial excellence? Because you could have quit after you founded G2i. You could have just quit right there and said, all right, I'm retired. I'm just going to take it easy for the rest of life. What kept you going?
Yeah, although I would have been a little bit young to do that. I think I would have been bored after 10 days.
How old were you?
I think it's my passion and love for entrepreneurship comes from the intersection of two things. One is a love for people, and especially creative people. And two is a passion for technology. I have a PhD in physics, in nonlinear physics. In fact, it's in chaos theory. And I had the opportunity to join, the CNRS, which is a very famous research institute in France, to do research. And I didn't want to do that because it was so esoteric, and that would not have given me the opportunity to interact with a lot of people. The scientific community is a terrific community, but it's a very small. You work very deep in a groove, doing research on a topic that maybe 20, 50, 100 people in the world really understand. And I'm a people guy. I like to interact. I like to meet new people, and then I'm fascinated by technology. So I moved to Silicon Valley because software. I always understood that software was the key. It's like electricity; it powers everything. And I looked at the map and I said, well, where is the place to be if you're interested in entrepreneurship and software? And of course, Silicon Valley was the answer. And that's why I moved here 31 years ago.
So what are the big driving characteristics? Like right now, there's a lot of people who obviously during the pandemic weren't thrilled with their current job status. They're trying to start up companies. They're trying to be successful. What are some of the things you've seen in your time and your experience being an entrepreneur that will lead people to successfully start and grow a business?
Well, starting a business, I always say, is easy. I mean, it's very easy to incorporate a company.
Starting a good one.
So that mechanical thing is anybody, almost a monkey can do it. The hard part is to build a real business. And what I call a real business is a business that's growing, that has real customers, happy, delighted customers, that is generating millions of dollars of revenue, that is creating jobs. And there is no easy way to define what you need to do to be a successful entrepreneur. There are very successful entrepreneurs, that started other companies and failed. I mean, if you look at Next, with Steve Jobs, Next was a failure. And even though he's a very, very, one of the best entrepreneurs this planet has ever seen. So there is no easy answer, but I think an unconditional passion for what you do, a strong belief, a strong conviction is really the basis. If you don't have that, if you are not deeply in love with what you're doing, and if you don't strongly believe that this is really critical that you do it, then I think the chance of success is very, very slim. I mean, you can get lucky, but if you don't have that passion, that drive, that conviction, because it is really, really, really hard to build a successful business. People think of the glamorous aspect of it, but I can tell you that it's grinding in and out, day in, day out. It's really, really hard. It's like a roller coaster, truly. I mean, you go up and you go down, you stay down for a while, and then suddenly you take off again. It is not for the faint of heart, for sure.
Yeah, I tell people, and I've said this on our show, don't become an entrepreneur unless you're a masochist, unless you like beating yourself up and torturing yourself. But the first business you sold, you said you were very young. How old were you when you sold that business?
I was, let's see, I was probably 25.
Oh yeah, that's too young.
Like this, yeah. And it was an interesting story because we built this business, and it was a great product. And our largest customer, which was Matra Communications, came to me one day and they said, "Well, we don't like the fact that you're selling your product to our competitors." And I looked at the guy and I said, "Look, there is only one way out of this, which is you buy us, and we're not for sale." And that's how we ended up selling the company.
It's a good strategy, and one thing that I hate is when you get a big client like Matra, who was your client, and they try to pigeonhole you and say, "We're going to give you this big contract, but you're not allowed to work with any of our competitors." And they try to get you to sign a non-compete or something, which wouldn't hold up, I don't think.
Yeah, I would have never done that. I mean, I was ready to lose that revenue because I knew that it was the end of the business if I had struck such a deal.
So how have you managed, how did you manage to kind of stand out in your field? Because, I mean, that's one of the big things is, getting your business in the door, standing out, because right now there's competition everywhere because, like you said, it's so easy to start a business. So what are some of the important things in standing out to, people like yourself who are doing venture capital? Is it just your passion? Surely there has to be more involved than that.
Yeah, I mean, think of the passion as the electricity, right? You need it to make the thing work, but it doesn't define the thing, if you will. So, I think that the most important thing is to really understand. I think there are two things. One is that you really need to understand the pain of your customer and then build a true and honest claim on how you're going to address that pain. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that your claim has to be differentiated and as unique as possible. You have to stand out. You have to be different. You have to say, yes, you can buy any of those, you can buy the product from any of those 50 companies. There's nothing wrong with that. But here is why you should buy ours, and is why we're different. So you have to think very hard. You have to engineer in the DNA of the company from the beginning why your product or your service will be different. And because that's going to be your selling point. That's going to be the hook where people will want to talk to you. And then you have to execute that difference. It has to be real. And then people easily can say, okay, well, I want to buy your product because you're right. The 50 other companies don't do that. And so those are the two things I think that are really critical to success.
You said you have a PhD in chaos theory, or your specialty, your master thesis was on chaos theory. Can you talk a little bit about chaos theory? Because I don't think our listeners are aware of what that is.
Yeah, sure. So there are two major discoveries in physics that happened maybe 100, 150 years ago that really shook me. The first one is that it's called the Heisenberg principle, which is a quantum mechanics principle that basically says that you cannot measure the location and the velocity of a particle at the same time. So if you want a very high level of measurement of the position, then you lose the velocity. Then the velocity measurement will not be as accurate. So you have to make a choice. And that's very humble because it means that, and that's a fundamental quantum mechanics phenomenon. So it's not because your measurement tools are not good. It's like you can prove that you can't do that. And then the second thing is chaos theory, which basically says that there are certain systems where a very, very small change in the initial condition will dramatically change the outcome. In other words, you cannot predict the outcome of a system. And it's because it's so sensitive to the initial condition. So people talk about the butterfly effect, which basically says that the butterfly somewhere in Thailand can affect the weather, in the United States, because it's an initial condition that has been changed. And the reason I think it's very profound is that you can prove that you will not be able to predict a system. And so there's a fundamental limitation in life. You can't get the measurement of the position and the velocity of a particle, and you cannot anticipate and figure out what the outcome of a complex chaotic system is going to be. And that really humbled me because it says that physics fundamentally puts restriction of what we as human beings can do. And that was a profound, discovery, a profound insight, on me and really made me think of things very differently than most people probably do.
Now, your new book, The Aligning the Dots, you talk about the subheading is The New Paradigm to Grow Any Business, which obviously suggests that the paradigm has changed. What has changed now that used to be true, and what needs to shift?
Yeah, it's a good question. Let me give a little bit of context. I believe that the only way to create sustainable and real shareholder value as you build a business is to grow your revenue faster than the market in which you operate. You have to beat the market. And in fact, mathematically, you cannot be number 1, 2, or 3 of any market if you didn't grow faster than the market. You have to beat your competition. So you have to gain market share. Then the question is, well, okay, if I need to grow faster than my market, it's Monday morning at 8 o'clock, what do I actually do? And the traditional way of thinking about this problem has been a series of tactical decisions made by the board, made by the management team that were very emotionally driven. They were not data driven. And so, for example, it's very easy to blame sales and the sales teams when the revenues are not coming because they are responsible to generate revenue. Well, if your claim and your pain are not aligned, back to the example I was talking about a little bit earlier, then no matter how good your sales force is, they're not going to sell. People are not going to buy your product. So I realized that the tactical ways of solving that problem, the traditional way, which is to blame sales, to change pricing, to offer discount, to buy another company, all those things, really, really rarely work. And again, the reason is because they are based on emotions rather than data. So I had a big insight in 2014, which was that the maximum rate of a business within, its target market, so always compared to the market that you want to address, that maximum rate can only be achieved when the market and the business are perfectly aligned. It's a fundamental alignment issue. And think of it as a mechanical watch. If you misalign the gears inside the watch, then it's going to start to slow down and eventually it will stop ticking. And it's the same with a company. If you're misaligned with your market, then you're not going to generate as much growth. You're going to slow down, your competition is going to take over, and you will eventually become irrelevant or the business will shut down. And so the book is really all about explaining what that alignment means, how you measure it, and what you can do on Monday morning at 8 o'clock to start growing your business faster.
You're now the founder of Blue Dots Partners. Can you tell us a little bit about what Blue Dots, what that company does?
Yeah, Blue Dots is a management consulting firm. We're based in Palo Alto here in the Bay Area, and we help company grow faster. So we work with CEOs, we work with investor and the board, and we apply our growth alignment methodology, which is described in the book, and we measure the alignment. And by measuring, then we extract insights and understand how and why the company is misaligned. And then that enables us to build what we call a growth playbook, which is a set of action that the company should be taken in order to start growing faster. So we work with companies, that are generating a few $1 million up to $1 billion, and we apply the methodology, we measure the alignment, and we tell them what to do on Monday morning. And that's effectively what we do.
So what are some of the biggest things you see companies doing wrong in these situations? And kind of, can you maybe just like the top 2 or 3 things that people are doing wrong, and maybe one tip that you tend to give out the most regularly that helps businesses?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There are 725 things that companies do wrong. I'm actually kidding. I don't know what the number is, but it's very, very high. So your question is really hard to answer. It's a little bit like you go and you ask a doctor, can you tell me what's wrong with people you see? And the doctor will tell you, well, I don't know, I see a kid who broke his arm this morning, and then this happened.
But we know the leading causes of death in the United States. So what are kind of the leading causes that lead people to need your services, have you seen?
It's one of 4 things, and they're all about misalignment. The first one is, again, the pain of their customer and the claim of what they are doing is misaligned. So I give you an example, Adam. If you come to me and you have a headache and I show you a stomachache pill, your pain and my claim are not aligned, you will never buy my pill. So that's one fundamental reason why companies don't grow as much as they can. The second one is that the messaging, which is the expression of their claim, and the understanding of what they do, of what the claim is, are misaligned. So imagine I have a pill for your headache. I describe it to you in Korean. I'm assuming you don't speak Korean. Then you will never buy my pill, even though it's the perfect pill for your headache, because you're like, what is the guy, what the heck is this guy talking about? Then the third reason is because the way they sell the product and the way people want to buy are misaligned. So if I said, well, Adam, you can get my pill, but you have to fly here to the Bay Area, you can say, well, wait a minute, there's a pharmacy where I live. Why can't I just walk there and buy the pill? And then the fourth reason is because they are misaligned in the experience. And this is a lesson I learned at Apple when I worked directly for Steve Jobs, is that I realized that there is only one business on this planet, which is the manufacturing and delivery of delight. And when somebody buys a product or a service, there is a delight expectation in their head. As they consume that product or service, that expectation has to be met. There cannot be an impedance mismatch between what they expect and what's delivered. And so again, those are the 4 fundamental reasons. And there are really no other reasons why companies don't grow. So the pain and the claim have to be aligned. The purchase and the sale have to be aligned. The message and the perception have to be aligned. And then the expected delight and the delivery have to be aligned. And there is actually a 5th alignment, which is the company and the organization has to be internally aligned as well. Because if they are not internally aligned, then they can execute on the 4 alignments with the market.
And is this these four criteria, is this what you call A4 precision alignment?
Yeah, so it's 4 axes, A1 to A4. And the other interesting thing is that they are absolutely universal. So I can take a cafe on the left bank in Paris, I can take a mid-sized company, in Chicago, or I can take Tesla here in Palo Alto. They apply exactly the same way. It doesn't matter what the company does.
You have in your book, you have one of the most interesting things I think I've ever seen in a book, and that's you break it down by how people should read your book based on the amount of time that they have. And I have to say, I've never seen that before. Where did you get this idea?
I was reflecting on business books in general. There is 10 or 11,000 business books written every year, and the one that I read, is like it's 200-page book, and there's actually 2 pages that if I had read, I would have extracted exactly the same amount of value than reading the 198 other pages. And so I said, as an author, I cannot do this to people. I have to be very respectful of the most precious asset that they have, which is their time. And so I decided to write it this way. I said, if you only have 10 minutes, you read those 3 pages, which gives you the very high level idea and concept around those 4 alignments. And then if you have 30 minutes, you read a bit more, and so on and so forth. And then if you're bored to death and can't sleep at night, then you can read the whole thing. And so that's why I wanted to say, just tell me as a reader, how much time do you have? Because again, I'm very respectful of your time. And then I will tell you as an author what you should be reading to extract, the most value of the book. And it's interesting because my editor actually was very against the idea. She said, well, imagine somebody is in an airport, they look at your book and they only read, the 10 minutes and they don't buy the book. And I told her, I don't mind. I mean, as long as I give them value, they don't necessarily have to pay me for this. And I'd be delighted if somebody extracted value in 10 minutes in an airport. I would have achieved my goal, which is to educate people and share some, important ideas.
Dr. Philippe Bouissou, the website is philippebouissou.com, PhilippeBouissou, philippebouissou.com. Also, Blue Dots Partners, they're at bluedotspartners.com, bluedotspartners.com. Dr. Philippe, do you have any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners or anything else you want to promote?
Well, I would tell people if they have an idea and a conviction and a passion that they want to build a business on, that they should do it. The journey is really worth it. It's very hard, but the learning that they will extract from that journey is incredible. And it may not work out, and it will certainly not be what they think is going to be. But I would encourage everybody to do it and don't give up. And they will learn so much about people and products and markets. And more importantly, they will learn so much about themselves.
One final question before we sign off. You said earlier, you love technology, and you're just almost all of your companies, or actually not almost all of your companies, have been tech companies, even on the consulting side. With the work from home that we've seen during the pandemic, post-pandemic, do you think it's possible to start a fully sustainable, applying the A4 precision alignment, not similar types of businesses, but successful businesses like an Apple? You worked for Apple, or even the first company started, G2i, Milestone. Is it possible to do all this from home moving forward?
Yes, I think that technology now enables that kind of a setup, which wasn't the case even 5 years ago. Now I will caveat that by saying that there is still a very high level of value in having face-to-face meetings. So I don't think it's, when I was at Apple, I argued really hard that we should sell direct over the internet, which back in 97, 98 was very unpopular because we were selling through retail and channel. And I've always argued that e-commerce and physical stores will cohabit. It's not one versus the other. You have to have both. And I think of work from home in the same way. I think it'll be very hard to build a real company without having those meetings. You don't necessarily have to have offices, but you do need to have meetings. And I think
Zoom is not good enough.
I think Zoom is not good enough, especially if you meet with a prospect or an investor or future board member. You have to establish that connection, and you lose through Zoom. Now, if you don't have anything else, and if you're doing business with somebody in Thailand and you're not going to fly to Thailand, then that's fine. But I think that it shouldn't be to the exclusion of having face-to-face meetings. And I think we can do it. Now, if you also have a factory where you build, physical goods or a semiconductor chip or something like that, obviously you need to be there. I mean, you cannot do that remotely, yeah.
Dr. Philippe Bouissou, thanks so much for joining us on the Work From Home Show. To all our listeners, check us out at workfromhomeshow.com. That's www.workfromhomeshow.com. If you have any questions, email us, hello@workfromhomeshow.com. That's hello@workfromhomeshow.com. Leave us reviews on whatever podcasting platform you use. Check us out on social media. We're everywhere. And until next week, keep on working from home.